This show is powered by BL3P, the Lightning-enabled European Bitcoin exchange.
Connect the build.
Ben de Waal, independent Bitcoin consultant in Dresden, Germany.
Dresden, known as the Florence of the Alps, is renowned for its rich cultural heritage and stunning architecture. Dresden also hosts a variety of art galleries and museums, such as the Staatliche Kunstsammlungen Dresden. Do you often visit these museums to appreciate the art and history they offer?
No.
Is it true that you used Mt. Gox in 2011, but didn't become a victim of the hack and bankruptcy because you had already taught yourself how to self-custody your Bitcoin?
Yes.
Was it necessary to orange pill your daughter?
No.
Did you already find a place to live in the UK?
No.
We were told you like spicy food. There are many cuisines around the world known for their spicy dishes, such as Thai, Indian, and Mexican. Do you have a favorite spicy cuisine?
Yes.
Do you own a pet?
Yes.
On April 20th, Bitcoin had its third halving, which took place at around 2:20 a.m. local time. Did you stay awake to see it happen live?
Yes.
You were born in New Zealand, you have a Dutch surname and currently living in Germany, looking for opportunities to move to the UK. Do you consider yourself a nomad?
No.
I care more about the ideas and actions than the people themselves.
Yes.
Are you Satoshi Nakamoto?
No.
Welcome to the Connected World Weekly Podcast. I'm Edward.
And I'm Steph. We are ready to take you with us into the beautiful world of the Lightning Network.
Enjoy the ride. This is episode 117 of Connect the World, and this show is made possible by our friends from BL3P and BRINGIN. Thank you guys for helping us out with our mission. And if you also want to help out to connect the world with Bitcoin through the Lightning Network, then head over to our Telegram group where you can ask us anything or follow us on Twitter, subscribe at our YouTube channel. And of course, a donation is always welcome. Conecta el mundo.
Welcome, Ben.
Welcome, man.
Thank you very much.
Well,
good to be here.
Good to
Awesome.
have you on the show, man. And
Yeah,
I was thinking we could do this interview of this episode in Dutch because you are Ben de Waal, so you have a Dutch surname.
A Dutch name, yeah.
But we just found out that you're born and raised in New Zealand, and you moved to Germany, and you only lived for 1.5 years in Holland, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So Dutch. Well, we are English podcast, so we will do it in English.
All Dutch people can talk English, right?
Yeah. But in your case, it's like the other way around. In your case, it's the other way around, Ben. So you're like an Englishman who can speak a little Dutch.
Yeah, I'd say I speak more Dutch than most native English speakers, but far less than any typical Dutch speaker.
Yeah.
Right.
Good to know. Hey, and I found out, and I found it in a thread you wrote or an answer you gave at someone on X, that you're a Mt. Gox user, but you're luckily one of the very few that not became a victim of their hack. Because you already taught yourself how to self-custody, and it was in 2011. So I was like, wow, this is great, right? I mean, it's like really early. That's a positive thing, but also self-custody. By that time, you didn't have a Trezor or a Ledger or a multi-sig setup. I mean, it was very difficult. Can you take us back to that moment? How did you manage it?
Sure. So I'd say it was actually almost the other way around, and it was by accident. So I first discovered Bitcoin in 2010. there was no option other than self-custody. Essentially, you ran the Bitcoin client.
Yeah.
There was a generate coins button, to actually mine, but it wasn't called that at the time. And yeah, that's how you made transactions. You just use the client directly. So when I bought coins on Mt. Gox, it was obvious to me I would send them to my client. I didn't really think of it as a wallet at the time. It was just, that's my Bitcoin client. I send the coins there. That's what you do.
Yeah. So it was, yeah. So you were really lucky, because if you just started your journey a year later, it would make perfectly sense to just keep them on Mt. Gox, right? I mean, yeah, then it's just the only thing you knew, right? So
yep.
Yeah, but I think
if
people
that happened,
were.
I would still have the coins. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
Okay.
if you are techie, then you of course use the software, right? And then the Bitcoin node is in it, and you just make the wallet, which wasn't called a wallet. I remember also using Armory as a secondary wallet, but I think that wasn't there in 2011. But the first wallet, making a backup, that kind of thing is more. If you are a techie person, then it's normal to not. That's what I think. Then Mt. Gox isn't something where you put your money. Then at least all of that.
So at the time, I didn't even really think of it as real money. So at the time, it was just this kind of this internet play money. And sure, I can throw a little bit of real money at it and get this internet play money. It wasn't until I actually started looking into it deeper that I started to appreciate, okay, Bitcoin is the real money and this other fiat stuff isn't. But at the time, I was thinking of fiat as real money and Bitcoin as just play money.
Yeah. and you just said, well, when I had to have it on when I kept it on Mt. Gox, they provided some kind of time lock for you, because they got hacked and they are now going to distribute the coins in July. I mean, the rumors say. So that maybe at the end you was the real lucky person then, if you kept your stack for over 10 years now, right? So it's even more than 10 years.
Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, and your daughter, Ben, Samantha, she is a real Bitcoiner too. She's only 13 years old, but she already was one of the speakers or panel discussions on events, and we asked, was it necessary to orange pill your daughter? And you said no, but well, explain to us how did her journey started?
Yeah. So the way I would define orange pilling is convincing somebody that Bitcoin is worth them looking into. And I never needed to convince her because she grew up with it. So she started, the very first conference she spoke at was adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador 3 years ago now. So the 2022, so 2 years ago. And we were in the car heading home from school, and she asked me what the next conference I was going to was, and I said, adopting Bitcoin. And she said, Dad, I never adopted Bitcoin. I was just born into it. Hold on, you're right. We need to get you on a stage in front of people saying that. So that's what we did. But really, she grew up with it, so I never needed to orange pill her because she just understood it. It was just part of her life from the beginning.
Yeah, but was it also because you're now living on a Bitcoin standard? I don't know for how long it was. Was it also when she got raised that you're already on a Bitcoin standard? That's like the main talk when it goes about finance and paying stuff. That that Bitcoin is the main thing that got used in your family, or?
So to an extent. So probably the best way to put it is I first discovered Bitcoin a year before she was born. I started getting deeper into it when she was born. We switched to a Bitcoin standard when she was 6. Okay. And now she's 13. So, she hasn't been on a Bitcoin standard her entire life, but she's certainly been around Bitcoin her entire life. And it's
from
It's
6
close
to
enough, yeah.
13, that's the age where you can grasp what is used or what is normal. So yeah, that's
Exactly.
yeah. So no orange peeling needed. Hey, there are two questions that I think are interesting to just know what it is. What is your favorite spicy cuisine, and what kind of pet do you have?
So I absolutely love hot Indian curries. So I think, actually most Indian people would complain that I say this, and most British people would say, of course. I love a good vindaloo. So, a good vindaloo is like the perfect food. And my pets, I actually have 3 rabbits.
Three rabbits, okay.
Yeah. A brown one named Maxie, a white one named Ella, and a black one named Zoe.
Awesome. And are there big ones or the small ones?
Small
ones.
small.
Okay.
So they're the first 2, Maxie and Ella, are long-haired lion-head dwarf bunnies.
Yeah.
So they've got that big lion-headed mane, and Zoe's more of a short hair, but she's also small.
Awesome.
And do they guide you through the rabbit hole you're in currently now? I mean,
a bit, yeah. We've made some good pictures of them with accepted hair stickers and that kind of thing. And
I have 2 guinea pigs running around here, so yeah,
nice.
It helps, right?
Hey,
the Indian cuisine, Steph, did you try it or?
Yeah, I also
for me, spicy food isn't my thing.
No, I really like spicy food, but I need to be cautious when I say spicy and Indian, because the level of spiciness the Indian cuisine has, I mean, it's like a different level. I know, I really like Thai food, but Thai food's my favorite food. It can also be very spicy. And I one time made the biggest mistake of my life, and I said, because I also order food in here, and I have my favorite place, and I have 3 options, like mild, hot, and very hot, or something like that. And I usually go with mild or hot, and because it's already spicy. And then one time I was like, well, let's give it a try. Let's go for really hot. And well, my lips, they were burning, but it was like the intensity was so intense that I couldn't even taste food anymore, And I was like, I never sweat. I mean, I can go 45 minutes of football or just going wild in the gym, and I never sweat. And then I was sweating like hell, It was like dripping all over my forehead, and oh man, it wasn't pleasant anymore.
Even.
Yeah, I ate it, but the thing is, you can eat it, but the spiciness, it only comes like 5 to 10 seconds after you had your first bite. So when you're very hungry and you just get a couple of bites, and then you're like, you wait a little, and then it comes, So
I work on the theory: if you're not sweating, then it's not spicy enough.
Okay.
If you're not sweating, it needs to be
spicy. Okay. So for me, like spicy,
so it's normal, completely normal.
That's me sweaty. It's too much for me. It's too much for me. So, but good to know. And you said that you wanted to, or you're looking into moving to the UK. And why is that? I mean, because you're living now for over 20 years in Germany?
Not quite, but close to it. I think 2007. So 17 years here in Germany. And it's mostly for education reasons. So I've got 2 kids, my daughter Samantha, and also I have a son named Lucas. And the German education system, in my opinion, just isn't suitable. It's not a particularly good system. And with Samantha coming with me to a lot of conferences and things, I'd really like more flexibility to allow that kind of thing to happen. So the plan is moving to the UK. We'll probably homeschool for the first year. If that goes well, we'll keep doing it. If it doesn't go well, then we'll look at other alternatives. But at least we've got the flexibility to then consider the different options.
Yeah, because now in German, it's like similar to here in Holland, I guess, that you only can get your week off within the official holidays, right? Or
yeah, so the official holidays, and they've got a list of exceptions, so special reasons you could take off school, things like a sporting event or
a disease of a relative or something. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
but going to a Bitcoin conference and speaking in front of 2,000 people somehow doesn't make the list. So
no,
yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy because it's like a lifetime experience, right? It's like you can't be taught that in school. So they should encourage it.
It's far more educational. What she learns going to a Bitcoin conference, she would never learn in 1,000 years of school.
No, I can imagine that. Yeah. And let alone also all the social context you have with different cultures and people from different ages, but also different backgrounds. It's far more. It's far better than what they teach you in school. But no, in Holland we see like a slight shift. We now, because I have 2 little kids, so I'm also a bit orientating on schools, and we now see a slight shift. There are some schools that are doing it differently. So then you can just you have to have a period of time before you apply for a different week of vacation or something. But they are more flexible. So, but just a very little. It's not in my region even. But I know some friends of mine who live in different regions where they have some schools. So maybe in the near future we will see some differences there. Ben, let's hope for it.
Let's hope.
Yeah, and your son, by the way, is it a Bitcoiner too?
So he understands the idea of Bitcoin, but he's not as interested in it as my daughter is. So, it's to him, it's this thing, it's money, it's what dad does for work, but it hasn't caught his attention.
No, but he's young, right? He's younger. Yeah.
He's 3 years younger, so he's 10 now.
Okay. So his time will come then, Ben.
Maybe, yeah. We'll see. I mean, look, I never pressure my kids into anything, so I never said, "Hey Sam, you're definitely coming with me to Bitcoin conferences, and you're definitely presenting." It was her choice, and she loves doing it, and it's something she's passionate about, so that's great. If my son wants to as well, great. I'll happily have him along and doing that too. But if he's not interested in it, I'm not going to force him.
No, but because pressure only makes them drive away from the subject, so. Don't put them under pressure now. Okay, hey, cool. Ben, you have a very interesting background story. We would really love to talk about some different subjects with you, but it has to be in the 21 minutes. So if you're ready, Ben, and Edward also, we would really love to enter that part.
The 21 minutes is brought to you by BRINGIN, the app to reliably sell and spend Bitcoin from any wallet. Yeah, the Bitcoin standard. Well, we talked about it earlier at Adopting Bitcoin in Arnhem. You talked about living on a Bitcoin standard, and you've been living on a Bitcoin standard since 2017. What are the most significant lessons you've learned from this experience, especially in terms of managing economic volatility and personal finances?
Yeah. So the most important thing that I've learned from living on a Bitcoin standard is that you have to be pragmatic. And you have to really think about what you actually mean when you say you're living on a Bitcoin standard. There are people who could take it to the extreme and say, okay, I only get paid in Bitcoin. I don't hold a bank account. I don't use cash. I don't use a credit card. I only shop at places which take Bitcoin directly. And they're probably going to end up starving on the street because most of the time you can't pay your electricity bill using Bitcoin or whatever else.
Yeah.
Maybe they can find some kind of workarounds, but that's not something that I find practical.
No.
So I take a more pragmatic approach and I say living on a Bitcoin standard for me means first, I get paid in Bitcoin. I think in terms of Bitcoin as my money. I will use fiat as a medium of exchange where necessary, but I prefer to use Bitcoin directly wherever possible.
Yeah. And how do you find and support businesses that accept Bitcoin? Because, well, I have one restaurant here in my city, and I have another one like 15-20 minutes away from me, but grocery store, I don't have any here in the neighborhood who accept Bitcoin. So how do you find and support businesses? So,
I like to, for a start, btcmap.org is one of the best websites in existence. It's a great place to go and find places that accept Bitcoin. I live actually very close to the Czech border, and Prague is about an hour and a half drive from here. And Prague is totally full of places that accept Bitcoin now. Prague is just a city of Bitcoin in a way. It's wonderful. So, I can go there and pretty much do whatever I want. But as for locally, there's a bakery, there's a nice cafe, there's a few sort of small businesses. And generally speaking, I have this approach where if I know somebody accepts Bitcoin, I will just go there. If I don't know if somebody accepts Bitcoin, then I will do my best to orange pill the business over time.
Yeah.
It takes
And
time.
what strategies do you use to encourage more businesses? Then what are the things that you're using?
So depends kind of on the business itself, what kind of needs they have, what kind of business it is. But generally speaking, for most businesses, I kind of just take the approach of walk in, ask if they'll take Bitcoin. If they say no, I'll turn around and walk out. Because that gets people thinking. It's much more than, will you take Bitcoin? No. Oh, okay, I'll pay with credit card or something. That they'll forget about that interaction, but they'll remember it if you walk out. So do that a few times and eventually a conversation will start. Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. Let's try it out, Steph. That sounds great. Hey, at the conference, you also mentioned that you use a lot of services like, for example, BitRefill for practical spending. Could you describe how these services facilitate living on a Bitcoin standard? And maybe you have any tips? There are flies flying around here. Any tips for others looking to do the same?
Yeah, so BitRefill is a great service. It's certainly not the only one I use, but I definitely like using it, and I think it's a great example of a service like that. BitRefill lets you buy gift cards essentially using Bitcoin. So I can buy a gift card for my local supermarket. So Rewe is one of the big German supermarket chains. I can buy a Rewe gift card, and I can do that using Lightning. So I can go do all of my grocery shopping, go to the self-checkout, scan all of my groceries, and then look at the amount there, and then buy a gift card in essentially that amount, so that I can then use that gift card directly. So I can do it while I'm standing there, rather than having to buy it in advance or whatever. And that's, I think, one of the most effective ways to actually do it. That way, the amount of time that I'm holding something denominated in fiat is a matter of seconds at most.
But I mean, when we see a dip like we have now, is it then not just? Are you also strategically? I mean, I can imagine that you think, well, now I'm going to stack that gift cards for the grocery store because now I have like 20% off on my groceries, right? Or is it? Yeah.
So essentially, that's to me a type of speculation, and I just really don't. It's something I theoretically could do, but I think the amount of mental energy that takes, I've got better things to be thinking about. It's just kind of not that interesting.
You're trading in a way then, right? And that's not
exactly.
That's not good for for your night's rest. So
I get paid in Bitcoin, but denominated in fiat a lot of the time, or most of the time. So what that really means is if the value of Bitcoin goes down, sure, my groceries cost more in terms of Bitcoin, but also my paycheck is higher in terms of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So it kind of evens out. It's really only the volatility in between payment and using it that actually makes a difference. And sometimes that's less, sometimes that's more. In the long run, it works out pretty much okay.
Yeah. You win some, you lose some, right? So
exactly.
And how important are peer-to-peer exchange services? Do you use them, and how important are they in maintaining a Bitcoin standard lifestyle?
So I think it's very different for different people. So I strongly recommend them to people in general. I think things like Bisq and Vexel are really great services. I recommend them a lot. I don't actually use them that much simply because I don't need to. I don't find myself needing to have fiat that directly at any given point in time. If I needed it, I'll use it, but it's just I just don't have the need.
Yeah. And at the conference, you also talked a little bit about Bitcoin as a store of value and medium of exchange. But how do you explain the concept to someone new to Bitcoin? For example, the restaurant owner who don't accept Bitcoin till this day.
So it very much, again, I always tend to answer it depends, and it's again one of those answers where I have to say it depends on who they are and how they're going to interact with Bitcoin. So a restaurant owner probably is suffering from things like inflation quite often.
Yeah.
You're also probably suffering from things like chargebacks quite often. So there are different use cases of Bitcoin for different kinds of people. And especially restaurants tend to be quite cash-heavy businesses. They tend to hold on to a relatively large operating amount of cash just sitting there, so inflation hits them. Chargebacks are a problem on credit cards, that kind of thing. But if you walk into a hairdresser, for example, there's probably much less cash on hand. Inflation isn't as big of a thing for them. Maybe they're very heavily a cash business, and so chargebacks aren't an issue for them either. So for a hairdresser, I would concentrate more on the fact that it really is more like a type of digital cash than it is like a bank account. So Bitcoin is this peer-to-peer thing, just like the cash that they accept at the moment. It's just digital rather than physical.
Yeah, and it's the only hard money we know at this time of. And you critiqued also the spend and replace philosophy, and this hurts me because I'm a spend and replace guy. No, just kidding. I do spend and replace. That's I need to be
double
honest
replace,
here. Double replace. I did that by the from time to time, but now I'm just spending and replacing my sets. But can you explain your viewpoint in more detail and discuss what you believe is a better approach for Bitcoin hodlers like me?
Yep. So I don't think spend and replace is bad. I just realized in 2017 when I decided to switch to the Bitcoin standard, I realized at the time that what I had been doing, spend and replace, didn't actually make logical sense. So spend and replace implies I'm going to hold some fiat and I'm going to hold some Bitcoin. I will spend the Bitcoin and then I will replace it by selling some or buying some Bitcoin, I guess you call it, selling fiat to replace the Bitcoin that I'd spent. When you do that, what you're really saying is, I had this fiat just sitting there waiting to be sold so that I have the same amount of Bitcoin again. Why did I wait? What was the point in waiting to do that? Why didn't I simply do it beforehand? So at that point, I was like, okay, I'll spend and replace, but I'll do it in advance. How much spend and replace should I do? How much replacement should I do in advance? Well, why not all of it? Why hold fiat at all? If the only point of holding fiat is that you're going to be exchanging it for Bitcoin, why hold it? The opportunity cost of holding that fiat is identical to the opportunity cost of spending Bitcoin. A lot of people talk about Laszlo spending 10,000 Bitcoin on pizza, 2 pizzas, and they're like, oh, he must feel terrible for having done that. What a waste of 10,000 Bitcoin. But if you had enough money to buy 2 pizzas at the time, you also could have exchanged it for 10,000 Bitcoin. You could have found somebody who would give you 10,000 Bitcoin for that amount of money. And you didn't.
That's
so
correct,
you actually suffered. Yeah, you suffered the exact same opportunity cost that he did.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. I also DCA, so I also have a weekly purchase of Bitcoin. So I'm not only I'm also growing my stack step by step. So, but I agree with you. I mean, that's a more hardcore way of living on a Bitcoin standard, I guess. So.
To me, it was just logical sense because I said to myself, what is the point in holding on to this fiat when I know I'm going to exchange it for Bitcoin? Yeah. So why am I holding it? Why am I waiting? Yeah. What am I waiting for?
Yeah. Hey, and it can be a huge challenge of having salaries denominated in Bitcoin. Have you seen any companies willing to adopt this practice, and what would be the potential benefits and drawbacks, perhaps?
So I think salaries denominated in Bitcoin, we've got to wait quite a while before that's realistic, simply because the exchange rate of Bitcoin is so volatile against the fiat currencies that it gets measured against. You could be being paid twice as much one month, half as much another month. It's not practical. That said, I as an independent consultant, I do actually charge some of my clients denominated in Bitcoin directly. So any long-term contracts I have, I will denominate in a local fiat currency, whatever is comfortable for the client. But for individual contracts, so let's say somebody wants to book 2 hours of my time to help them through a particular problem or discuss something, then I will charge that denominated in Bitcoin directly. So I will send them an invoice which will say something like 2 million sats or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
As the actual invoice. What that's worth in fiat is irrelevant to me.
Cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you
that's
often,
nice.
you often emphasize education in your consulting work. How do you approach educating new users about living on a Bitcoin standard? Well, we just elaborated a bit, but what are the most common misconceptions you need to address by those people?
So I generally don't talk so much with my clients about living on a Bitcoin standard. I'll mention it, of course, but generally speaking, my clients are companies who I'm helping to integrate Bitcoin into their products and services. So it'll be a company who needs Bitcoin integrated into an existing product, or they're building a new product and they want to have Bitcoin in it in some way. So that's not really the target as such, but I do have to educate them a lot on a bunch of other things. I have to educate them on why do it this particular way instead of that particular way. Why should they not be a custodian for all of their customers, for example? Why is that a problem for them? What does it actually mean? What are some of the risks involved with holding Bitcoin, especially Bitcoin that doesn't theoretically belong to you? So all of those kinds of things are involved in the education for my clients.
From education to kids, because you also talked about setting up a Bitcoin time lock for your kids. Can you share a little bit more about that and what is what you want to achieve in the future with a time lock?
So when my son was born, a little bit later, but shortly after my son was born, we kind of decided it'd be good to put some money away for them. And what's the best way to put money away? You could create some kind of special savings account at a bank or whatever, but it just doesn't seem sensible with what I already knew about money at the time. So how can you put Bitcoin away? I could just transfer it to a particular address on a hardware wallet and then stick it in a safe or something like that. But I really wanted something more definite, something more certain, where even if I wanted to access it, I can't. So that's exactly what I did. I created two addresses which have the spending conditions of being this private key plus this particular block height, which is effectively a time lock. So the funds cannot be accessed by anyone until after that particular block height. Then I transferred a certain amount of Bitcoin in for each kid.
Great
Cool.
solution.
Hey, and your daughter Samantha had an interesting fireside chat together with Arnold Hubach at the Bitcoin Adopting Bitcoin Arnhem conference. And during the chat, Samantha mentioned that she grew up with the Bitcoin as a normal part of life. How do you approach educating children about Bitcoin, and what methods do you find most effective? Well, we already agreed on that. Not pushing is not the way, but yeah, can you maybe share some of the tricks that that worked for you?
Yeah. So to me, Bitcoin is just another thing that exists in this world that I need to teach the kids about. So I teach them about how how to cook food, how to help clean the house, how money works, and a big part of how money works is how Bitcoin works, because Bitcoin is our money. It's the money we use, and I make it very clear that, in my opinion, it's a better form of money, and here's why I think it's a better form of money. So I tend to use just a very practical approach. This is the world we live in, and these are the things that I'm teaching about it, and Bitcoin is one of those things. As they get older, I'm starting to kind of introduce a lot more of the idea of different people have different understandings of the world.
Yeah.
So, maybe, we look at this particular issue in one way and somebody else looks at it in a different way, and that's okay. But of course, also in that is therefore some people look at Bitcoin differently than we do. We use it as our money, but There are certainly a lot of people in the world who think Bitcoin is just this speculative idea, and it's something only good for making more money, which they view as dollars or euro or whatever. And it's just this speculative vehicle. So as the kids get older, I can become more nuanced about it and discuss the fact that different people have different opinions and different views on the world. While they're younger, I think that kind of goes over their head. So while they're younger, it's easier to say, this is how I see things. Maybe you're going to see it the same way. Maybe you're going to see it different. But then as they get older, we can get into the nuance.
Yeah. Because Samantha also mentioned about a teacher describing Bitcoin as shady. So that's what you need to overcome, of course. And are there any other strategies effective for promoting Bitcoin to younger generations? Maybe some educational effort that needs to be done?
So there are a lot of really good Bitcoin books out there. I think there are a lot of good children's books, but even books which aren't intended for children can be excellent books for kids to read, especially older kids. So things like The Little Bitcoin Book or Inventing Bitcoin by Jan Pritzker, they're written in ways that they're accessible to basically anyone of let's say early teenager and up. They're very easy reads. They don't use big complex language. There's not a lot of maths involved. It's just fairly straightforward. So there's books like that. Not everybody is a reader. Not everybody likes reading a lot of books. So especially kids. So other ways include things like there are sometimes some interesting YouTube videos. Some podcasters can be quite interesting for kids. Again, not always. And then I also like to think about things like various kinds of games and educational activities. So there's this fun one I've always liked the idea of doing with larger groups of kids. What you can do is set up a small economy. So you give all of the kids some things and some Monopoly money. And you let them buy and sell the things for whatever prices they think is reasonable. What they don't know is that you have a huge collection of Monopoly money yourself, and you sort of go around and you occasionally just buy some things from the kids, and you're injecting new money into the economy. Very quickly, the prices will start rising. And this happens entirely naturally, even with kids. And afterwards, you can explain that that's inflation. And you can explain how adding money into the system causes inflation. And just, it's so obvious and so natural for the kids to learn it that way. They've seen it with their own eyes. They weren't told about it in advance. And simply doing little things like that and then explaining, isn't it better, wouldn't it be better if there was some kind of money where it's impossible to do this, where you can't just have some kind of stack of it behind your back and put it into the system?
And hopefully, and I guess they will see that it's like unfair when it's organized like that, right? When there's just one central party who is in control of the money supply, and there's only one who is benefiting from adding more money into the system, right? So, and I was curious, Ben, because I talked to Arnold Hubach. Also, he's a friend of the show, and we know him very well. But he made a book, not a book, a board game. It's called what's it called?
Block Hunters.
Yeah, Block Hunters. Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Edward. This might also be a good way. I mean, I think it's not for very young children, but I think for the age of Samantha, maybe even a little older, it's also a great way to get to know Bitcoin and like in a role game or playing the board game, right? So
I haven't seen Block Hunters yet, but it does, it sounds like an interesting game, and I'm looking forward to, getting my hands on it and trying it out and seeing it. We play things like Shamory, so that memory-based game, which involves blocks.
Okay.
So,
nice.
Yeah, we've got a few Bitcoin games, but I think the more the better. So I'd love to see games being made.
Nice, cool. Well, we ran out of time, Eddie.
Metti il mondo.
Like always, time flies when you're having
like
fun.
always. So many questions.
yeah. Thanks for this part, Ben. And we had a lot of more questions, but we will invite you back into a future show.
Absolutely.
Happy to do
And
so.
for now, we have one question left. But the funny thing is that you may choose yourself. So we prepared a question from Anita Posch, and she's from Bitcoin for Fairness. Well, you know her, obviously. Gerardo Linares, he's from Bitcoin Berlin. He was also one of the speakers at the conference. And Prashant from BRINGIN. So which one will it be?
I think I'll take Anita's question because, she's a friend. So I'll take Anita's
course.
question.
Yeah, cool.
Here
Let's
she
go for
comes.
it.
Anita Posch, Bitcoin for Fairness. And my question is, will Bitcoin become totally captured by governments, businesses, and number go up people? Or will we be able to maintain it as a tool for freedom of transaction, and as a medium of exchange that gives us also privacy?
Wow, that's a really great question from Anita, and I have to give a really terrible answer first, but then I'll elaborate. The terrible answer is
okay.
I don't know because nobody knows. But I guess then to kind of clarify on that a little bit further, I think there is a lot of people trying to centralize a lot of things, people who only care about, number go up and so on. And, there's a lot of corporate interests involved who are pushing in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think it's quite likely that what could happen is another split, just as we had a split after the block size wars between Bitcoin Cash and the real Bitcoin. There could be another split where we have some kind of corporate Bitcoin, which all of these people are trading on exchanges and, number go up, corporate people caring about that sort of thing. And then the real Bitcoin, which simply carries on, and it would probably have a lot less value because all of the speculators have disappeared and they're playing around with that other thing. But we've got freedom money. We've got money peer-to-peer that we can continue using. So I think any attempts to do so are more likely to fracture Bitcoin than they are to kill it.
Yeah, that will be a nice future, right?
I hope so. I hope so, Ben, and I hope that we can. We will have Bitcoin as it is meant to be. That's the dream,
absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Connetti il mondo.
Where can people
Thanks
follow
again,
you, Ben?
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm pretty much on most social media very rarely. The one I use most is Twitter, or X if people want to call it that now. And my handle is Ben_Deval. So just my first name _ my last name. I'm also on a few other social media platforms with the same name, but I don't use them that much. I'm trying to use Noster more, but if you want to find me there, you'll probably have to just Google Ben Deval Noster and find me that way.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks again, Ben. And thanks for everybody else for listening in. And of course, thanks everyone helping to connect the world with us together. And if you like our content, then please support us in our mission. Visit our website, connecttheworld.live, where you can also donate and subscribe, like, and share our content on your favorite platform. So we need you to complete our mission, connect the world to keep those nodes running, sats flowing, and of course, live on a Bitcoin standard if you can. And see you all next week on the same Lightning channel. Namaste, Ben.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Ciao.